with us here on the Big Ten Network. Coach, welcome. Literally one play away last year from playing for a national championship. How do you process that? How do you put last year into perspective? Do you use it as incentive? Do you not use it? What's the strategy for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think coming off of that last game, it took a while to process everything that went on during that month. And you just try to identify the things that, went wrong. Because, like you said, we'll play here, play there, and there's a whole different conversation. But it didn't happen. So, the focus really was trying to get as much experience back. Cade Stover, Tommy Eichenberg, Xavier Johnson. We got some veteran guys back off of this team. And so I feel like this is probably the most experience we've had, especially on defense, than we've had since 2019. Mm-hmm. I think that is really important. We were young the last couple of years, and I think we'll have experience coming into this year, but the big focus has been on competing. Everything we've been doing is about competing and to try to find that one or two plays that can make the difference, especially in matchup games.
Coach, you've been in the quarterback battles before as a coach, trying to decide what usually separates the starter from the rest of them.
Yeah, I wish I could say it's one thing, but over time you just kind of build a Rolodex of things you look for in a quarterback. I think every throw isn't the same. When you're in 7-on-7, it's a second play of 7-on-7 and you throw a good ball, that's great, but it's a lot different when it's third down drill on 3rd and 3 and you put the ball in the right spot, or you find the hot, or you make that throw to end a drive in the red zone. Those game altering plays and those situations where you have a play action set up and there's a guy open and you got to make that throw to go score a touchdown. Those are the things you look for, and as time goes on you try to identify those things the best you can as a coach. But also you can't really figure in their feet until you get into a game where you're actually tackling. You can figure out a little bit in the pocket, but we have a couple quarterbacks that can move, and so we'll try to do the best we can to get a quarterback here for the first game, and then kind of see how the season goes.
So is a quarterback ever live in practice, a non-starter, someone who hasn't started? Do you ever cut the defense loose and let them sack them?
We've done it with the 4th string before on a Wednesday practice to get the guys fired up, but that's about it.
Not during the competition, so you never know a first-time starter how they react to the pressure.
You got it.
Yeah.
And when you take those attributes that they come to the table with, but how about just being the starting quarterback at Ohio State? That's not an easy task. So that mental toughness has to also be a part of that process, correct?
There's so much that's a part of it. I'm been watching that Netflix, story, Quarterback, and Peyton Manning says, the hardest sport in hardest position in all of sports is quarterback, and it comes all those things that come with it. And certainly at Ohio State, you're going to be, scrutinized in so many different ways, and you're going to get a lot of the credit, which you have to be able to handle that. You have to handle the success, but also the blame when something doesn't go well, and you got to be able to handle that and continue to grow from that and build and be resilient. So, yeah, there's a lot that comes with it.
You have an offensive line you have to rebuild. How'd that go in the spring?
Yeah, I thought it was good. We did add some pieces here in the offseason. We bring on Josh Simmons, who's an offensive tackle from San Diego State. We brought in Vic Cutler. We have a couple freshmen that we feel like, I said after the spring, you're not freshmen anymore. You're going to have to come in and play. So I feel decent about our guards. They're coming back. They've played. Carson Hinsman, got the majority of the reps with the first team at center. He's going to have to take the next step and solidify himself as a starter, and then we got to find tackles. Right. We do have probably about 4 or 5 guys that are in contention there, so that's good. But we need guys to step up at starter level.
How do you prepare as a new play caller, Brian Hartline? He's great at all the other things he does, but what gets him ready? And how do you guys operate together so that when he steps out on the field or into the booth, it's secondhand or second nature for him?
I think the hardest thing about being a coordinator is the organization on a daily basis of organizing the offense, running the meetings, putting the install together, making sure the individual's right, making sure everybody's tied in together, make sure when you watch the film the corrections are being made, make sure everybody's on the same page as one voice in the run game and the pass game. I think those are all the game planning. Those are all the really important things as a coordinator. The play calling is part of it, but to me that's the most important area. We'll figure the play calling out, but ultimately that's the area where you have to grow as a coordinator. And that's probably the thing that I had to learn as much more than anything is being a play caller was that it's all about the work you put in during the week and making sure everybody's on the same page. So the next progression for Brian is just that, like we're talking about, is being a coordinator, learning those type of things. He's got a great staff and a great environment to learn from, though.
Coach, you had some problems with some of your matchup opponents on defense. You're in the scheme his second year.
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of getting better at the scheme, or do you change things?
I think it's both. I think we have to do the things that fit our guys. And like you said, the explosive plays are what got us, in those two games. I thought we played really well in the Penn State game. I thought we played well in the Notre Dame game, which I think ultimately allowed us an opportunity to play in the playoffs, those two wins.
Right.
But we got an opportunity to go win championships, and we didn't do it because of the big plays. So we had to take a hard look at that in the offseason to figure out how to eliminate those. Also still being aggressive. We're not just going to sit back and take it either. We still have to be aggressive. But year two in the system, typically you're learning how to do it as opposed to what to do. And, I think Jim's taking a hard look at that, making sure we have the right guys in the right spot and finding that balance of being aggressive but not having those big plays.
Have you found yourself spending more time with the defense after the season?
Certainly thinking about the defense, having conversation.
Right.
Jim does a great job. He's hired to do a job.
Right.
But I think we've had a lot of great back and forth of just, hey, here's some things to think about. What do you think about that? And he's great. He'll listen, and sometimes he'll take it, sometimes he won't. But I also need to be there in the second half of the season this year for him to just now 7 years at Ohio State, just being around it and coming at it from a head coach's point of view. That's something I identified coming off of last year. You learn every year as a head coach, right, is that the first half of the season, the off season, feel very in tune with everybody on the whole program, making sure that the second half of the season I'm really there and in tune with the defense.
And the way you organize the offensive staff with Brian obviously has something to do with that.
Yeah, it does.
To allow you to do that.
We added Joe Philbin onto the staff as an analyst to help with some of the younger coaches. So I feel really good about where we are as an offensive staff. I feel really good where we are as a defensive staff. We just got to now play our best football at the end of the season.
Really talented group of linebackers being coached by a talented linebacker in James Laurinaitis. How have you watched him grow in the limited time you've had him during spring on the field and also now in the classroom?
So another huge addition to our staff is James. James has a great feel as a coach already. You can just see it. He's somebody that obviously played the position, so he demands credibility right away. But just listen to him for 5 minutes. You learn so much. He's got a great perspective, and I think he's connected well with those guys. And it's the most experience we've had. You got Tommy, you got Steele, you have Cody. C.J. Hicks is somebody that has had a great offseason. So, kind of like the 2019, crowd there. We got some experience, and that's important at linebacker.
What do you see as your team's biggest question mark heading into the year?
Yeah, I think it's filling those three spots on the O-line and quarterback. Everybody has to play. The defensive line has got to become guys that we can count on for, north of 60 plays a game. They have to carry the water up front. They can. They're older guys now. Those guys have all played. They're very talented. I feel the same way about the linebackers. We have more depth at corner than we've ever had, I think. The safeties are going to have to play at a high level. It's a safety-driven defense. I think the skill level that we have in terms of the wide receivers, running back, tight end is as good as we've had. So I think if you just say going into the preseason, those are the areas, the center, two tackles, and then the quarterback.
Do you have a time frame in your head for when you want to decide on the quarterback?
We've done it usually 2 weeks into the preseason camp with CJ and with Justin, Dwayne. So that would be great if one of the guys emerges. That's if somebody emerges. If they don't, then we'll keep working at it.
Does the fact that Devin was injured some in the spring, does that factor into wanting to give him a longer look? Or
I would have loved to see him play in the spring game and play in front of 80,000 people we had at our spring game, and just to get a feel for that.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. Disappointing for him. He was disappointed. So, what does that mean? I don't know. Just it was one less exposure, but he'll have plenty of opportunity here in August.
Ryan, how much do you talk about last year? How much do you talk about not winning the Big Ten, not beating Michigan, but making the college football playoff? Do you message last year coming into this year, or is it just, hey, clean slate, let's not worry about it?
No, we talk about it. Yeah, you can't overdo it, but yeah, it's right there. We can't run away from it.
Right.
And it's what motivates us every day. Our guys get tired of hearing of it. That's good. We gotta do a better job and win those games next year. But at the same time, that can't be all you focus on.
Right.
We got to look forward and learn from those things. But it isn't just about that you didn't win those games. It's why didn't you win those games, and let's get them fixed.
Yeah. Ryan Day, head coach of the Buckeyes, always appreciate your time and your insights. We'll look forward to seeing you at camp here in a few weeks in Columbus.
You got it.
Thanks, Coach.
Right.